Greetings, this is Eat Fat Grow Slim, and today I'm going to talk about something which is part of my personal journey. As you may know, if you followed this page, this channel, 4.5 years ago I was obese. I was suffering from gout, pre-diabetes and fatty liver disease, and I cured myself with fasting. But I want to talk to you about fatty liver disease particularly today, because it is very important and it is often misunderstood. And I've been following a Facebook page where people are giving a lot of advice, and it's just very clear to me that not many people really understand what actually is going on with fatty liver disease, and it seems their doctors don't seem to know either. There are exceptions to this, but I can verify that in terms of gout and fatty liver, I was given bad advice on several occasions about how to reverse it. And if it wasn't just a case of I'll take these pills, any advice I did get was short of the mark. So let me just talk to you. I'm going to put the whole thing in a nutshell and then speak probably about 15 minutes all told. So I had it for years without actually realising it. It can be almost completely silent and you can feel fine, but just slightly dysfunctional. You can sort of function almost normally, and meanwhile your liver is slowly filling up with fat. And that's exactly what happened to me. And when I finally understood what was going on, I changed my diet completely. And here's the key: I removed fructose. It was all the other things I did, but removing the fructose was primarily the best thing I could have done. So I also removed nearly all my carbohydrates, and I used fasting to lower my glycogen levels, lower my insulin levels, so my liver could finally start burning the fat stored inside of it. Those changes reversed my fatty liver, as well as reversing my pre-diabetes, reversing my obesity, and I suppose you could say they saved my life. They certainly saved my health. So, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, or NAFLD, is about fat accumulating inside the liver in people who drink little or no alcohol. The liver is the most important organ in the body. It is said, I suppose you could say the skin is the bigger organ, and you'd be dead very quickly without your skin, but you'd be dead just as quickly without your liver. It's designed to handle nutrients, detoxify the blood and store small amounts of energy, normally in the form of glycogen, which is strings of glucose, blood sugar, otherwise known as animal starch. Now, when it comes overloaded with fat though, it cannot function properly, and at first it's just storing excess fat, but if the process continues, the liver becomes inflamed and eventually damaged. And because this disease often has no obvious symptoms early on, it can progress to quite a pitch, and many people only discover it by accident during a scan or a routine blood test, and then they go, oh, well, that's why I've been feeling this way. Now, the thing about the liver is, although it's quite big, it can only store 1/2 pound of fat, absolutely maximum, and it actually can accumulate that fat fairly quickly. So I really want to talk about what causes NAFLD, and the main driver is the way the liver handles certain carbohydrates. Now, most people go straight to the, oh, I've got fat in my liver, I should stop eating fat and I'll get better. No. And unfortunately, what happens with low fat diets is the number of carbohydrates increase. And if you're just doing it by calorie counting and you think a molecule of fructose is just the same as a molecule of glucose, and 100 calories of fructose or glucose is the same as 100 calories of fat, no. The thing about fat is it can be stored safely away somewhere else other than your liver. The thing about fructose is tissues in the body that normally use glucose, blood sugar, cannot use fructose. Your liver has a special journey for the fructose. So what happens when you eat lots of carbohydrates? Your muscles can store up some of that sugar as glycogen. Your liver can store up some of that sugar as glycogen. And as long as you're not topping up too much beyond a certain point, and you're using it, and you're using it from the muscles, you will not get into trouble. However, when the liver receives fructose, that's when the problem happens. Now, that's when it turns into excess fat, because you have no use for fructose. I'll say that again. If you can understand this, you're halfway there. Your muscles can't use fructose. Actually, there are some cells inside the gut that can use fructose, but only a few grams in a day. What happens when you drink sugary stuff, half of that is fructose, and it ends up in the liver. The source of fructose in modern diets is sucrose. That is ordinary table sugar. Sucrose is 50% glucose, 50% fructose. It's called a disaccharide. There are monosaccharides, and that's the fructose and the glucose, but sucrose, table sugar, is half and half. Every teaspoonful of sugar is delivering fructose straight to your liver. So every sweetened drink, every dessert, every processed snack, every donut, every healthy cereal with added sugar is contributing to the same problem. We've all heard of the scourge of HFCS, high fructose corn syrup. It's only part of the story, but it's a specialised type of sugar which big food companies have decided is better for you because it's super sweet, super addictive. Oh, you wonder why they put that in. And it contains even more fructose than ordinary sugar. And the real issue here is just the sheer amount of that and ordinary table sugar. And food companies use dozens of different names to disguise sugar. Glucose, fructose, syrup, fruit concentrate, dextrose, maltose, invert sugar, cane sugar, brown sugar syrup, maltose, honey. Your liver doesn't care if it's come from a bee, it's still fructose. When it's in the gut, it is directed directly to the liver, where it is all turned into fat. Okay? But actually, the glucose on its own can also contribute in its own way. When glycogen stores, so as I said, glycogen is when all the glucose molecules chain together. When they're full, the liver cannot store any more glucose, and at that point the liver converts excess glucose into fat as well. This means that frequent carbohydrate intakes of constant snacking, large meals keep glycogen stores topped up and force the liver into fat production mode. Over time, that accumulates and adds to the fructogenic liver fat. Okay. I've been spending some time on Facebook and I'm horrified at the amount of free advice you get there. And all you need to do is take this or that. Bit of vitamin E, NAC, cleared mine up right away. No. Now, supplements might do something. I'm not denying that. But they won't help reverse your fatty liver. You'll find endless lists of supplements: milk thistle, turmeric, NAC, vitamin E, omega-3 oils, choline, berberine, vitamin C. What else have I seen? Bicarbonate soda, all sorts of suggestions. Some of them may have mild supportive effects. Okay, they might encourage some effects, but none of them address the core problem. They do not stop the liver from being overloaded. If you're going to continue to consume fructose, continue to consume sucrose, continue those sweet drinks, that excess is going to have to go somewhere. Those supplements are not going to empty your glycogen stores unless you're doing exercise. They do not switch the liver from storing fat to burning fat. You cannot supplement your way out of a bad diet. Supplements may help around the edges, but they cannot compete with the impact of simply removing glucose and fructose and reducing carbohydrates, especially processed food, and allowing the liver to clear its stored fat. Dietary change is far more powerful than any capsule or powder. For some of you, it might be as simple as giving up those 6 Coca-Colas a day, or skipping the sugary cereal in the morning. But basically, if you've got fat in the liver, you need to do something quite drastic. Here's the good news. It's reversible. Okay, the liver is very resilient. When the pressure on the liver is reduced, it can clear out the accumulated fat. Removing fructose takes away the constant demand for the liver to convert fructose into fat. Reducing carbohydrates lowers the glycogen levels, which stops the liver from converting excess glucose into fat. Fasting accelerates this process by naturally lowering glycogen stores and encouraging the body to burn stored fat, including the fat inside the liver. These changes don't need to be extreme, but they need to be consistent. And when the liver is no longer overwhelmed, it begins to repair itself. Now, fasting is really great. If you haven't seen my videos on that, please persist and have a look at those. This is how I achieved my health. In my case, I used all 3 strategies. I removed fructose completely, which meant cutting out sugar, fruit juice, sweets, processed foods containing sucrose or high fructose ingredients. I removed almost all my carbohydrates, so my glycogen stores would not stay full. Actually, the carbs I did eat were green carbs, cabbage, maybe a little bit of fruits in the form of berries, which are very low sugar. And I use fasting to push my body into fat burning mode. So the fasting actually drops your insulin to open up the fat stores. Over time, my liver cleared the accumulated fat and returned to normal function. It worked because it addressed the actual mechanisms that were causing the problem. Okay, I wasn't relying on pills and potions or anything like that. I did some moderate exercise and I stopped eating. But I did ensure that every day I got my essential proteins, my essential fats. That's the difference. Because your body needs things, it just doesn't need too much. So, fatty liver is actually very, very common. It's often silent and potentially serious, but it develops for clear reasons, and the liver becomes overloaded by constant flow of fructose and excess glucose, and it responds by storing fat. When the pressures are removed, the liver can recover. My own experience is proof of that. By emptying its glycogen stores to burn fat, I reverse the condition, and many people can do the same once they understand what is driving the process and how to remove the strain from the liver. The other little thing is when that fructose is ported directly to the liver and it starts to convert it into fat, there's another little thing that happens, and it makes this nasty substance called uric acid. Uric acid can accumulate in the joints, and there's a special type of arthritis called gout you might have heard of, and that's for the next video. So, follow for more.